All right, BQ fam. If you're wondering why I'm wearing the same clothes as the last time I talked to Matt, it's because it's the same day. So we started this life study for a couple guys that didn't want to be in my Bible study anymore. Lo and behold, they didn't show up to life study today. So earlier recording was lesson 1. We didn't do lesson 2. We just did a random hangout with Matt and I, and it's awesome. So the question for this one will be, what is an academic? And yeah, just exploring Matt's walk life versus kind of more of my walk of life. And I don't know how soon this whole scholarly journey starts. I mean, we're kind of iterating with it weekly now, but yeah, it's just opening up my eyes. There's a whole nother world out there that like I've kind of been vacant from. And I think this is super interesting. Like if you're a business person, you should listen to this and maybe come hang out with Matt and I if you want to broaden your horizons. Matt and I, the group and I, Saturday evenings, or let me know if you want access to it because we're going to record it and you can consume it that way. I don't know if we're going to post it on Better Questions or what we're going to do, but the exploration of academia, that's what we talked about today. You know, it's funny. It's actually funny because, like, I don't know, man, like, what we're doing is actually extremely difficult, I guess. It's like getting dudes on a call to show up and whatever. And, like, you know, the funny thing is like this isn't even your call or my call. They requested this because they didn't like the other call that I had going on. You know what I mean? It's like, anyway. So yeah, dude, I'll prime it. One, are you listening? So are you listening to are you consuming any media? I know you completely got off of the gram and all that. Do you have any podcasts that you tune into or care about? Or you're all read and reading old literature?
That's a good question. Like, I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, which is probably a good thing to do. Yeah, I'm consuming media of some sort because I have some general idea of what the news is reporting on. Like, I know that the government's still shut down and there was a ceasefire signed in Gaza, and I'm unfortunately still, and this is my own doing, like plugged into right-wing circles and kind of like internet culture out of my own personal interest. So I know that. I probably more than anybody follow Tucker Carlson.
Before I let you go, because you have disdained Tucker, it's not for his curiosity. You still disdain him, and then I want to lead the audience to where I want to take you, because you and I get down rabbit holes here. But the question I'm asking you to explore is like, does half of America want fascism, and does half of America want socialism, and is that really bad? These made up words, and like, what do we want? So I want to get into that whole dialogue, but in the beginning, I want to like really I want to understand how you're digesting, and the reason is, and I'll share with you. I sent you. There's a guy on Sean Ryan's podcast that's doing everything I wanted to do with the information ecosystem. It'd be very interesting, and like a lot of the problems that he thinks are still out there, I think I have solves for. So I'd love for you to look at that, but I'm taking great hope. I think we're going to evolve out of it. I really do, man. I really think we're going to evolve out of it. I think we're at the bottom of the trough. But anyway, I don't know where you want to jump in on that, but I'm very curious. I really want to understand your disdain of Tucker Carlson, because generally, where it comes from.
Yeah, I think all of that goes together. Tucker Carlson, socialists, fascists, all of these boogeymen. I don't want to say that I despise Tucker Carlson, but I have said that I despise Tucker Carlson. I have despised Tucker Carlson. I'm trying to grow out of that. I don't think life's too short to spend despising talking heads. But to anybody out there who still finds Tucker Carlson despicable, I'm still certainly sympathetic to that. And I'm not sympathetic to anybody who finds Tucker Carlson endearing or intelligent or a good guy. Although I don't know, I've never met him. I would love to meet Tucker Carlson. Actually, I think we would get along.
Well, hopefully this isn't. Yeah, well, we're gonna try to make that happen with the little podcast we got going.
Yeah, right. No, I would love to talk. He says everything he says is so interesting, and I'm always listening, being like, oh man, like, because they never go in the direction that would be what I would find
the most meaningful.
Like today,
they don't ever go to the most meaningful. That's what I've been
today. I was rewatching. I watched the whole Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes thing. It was fascinating, and then I was rewatching a clip today about feminism, where Fuentes does his stupid rant about how women are all they're all just these liberal, fat, egotistically inflated losers, essentially, that have found themselves in positions of power and are like acting out this Instagram archetype of a girl boss, and this is the death of Western civilization and so on. And Tucker Carlson, he tries to engage on this, and he does do this thing. One thing that drives me crazy that he does is this fake incredulity where he pretends to be shocked. And Nick Fuentes tells him that women today are all feminists, and Tucker's like, really? People still believe in that? People still believe in feminism? Like, what are they, stupid? and Nick's like, yeah, of course they do. And Tucker does, he has to do his profession of faith and do his like, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, we live in a patriarchy. That's just how it is. We didn't choose that, but we were born into it. And then he says, he starts talking about how stupid gender theory is. And he's like, yeah, like, wait, people still believe in this stuff? Like, what? You're going to tell me gender's just a construct. It doesn't have any basis in biology, right? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. It's scientific fact. and I would love to talk to him about that, right? Like, that seems to be having it both ways. If all that being a man is biology, then why are we so threatened by? Why is Nick Fuentes so threatened by the rise of the changing of cultural norms? Right? If gender isn't culturally constructed, then what does it matter if the culture is taken over by feminists that raise men to believe this or that? If men are just men biologically, and I think that that is bullshit. Men are not men biologically. Men need to be, in order to become a something along Tucker Carlson's line of what a man should be, that requires very particular cultural training and cultural indoctrination and cultural development, education. There needs to be traditional male role models in that boy's life to teach him how to be a man, like John Wayne and whoever else. I would love to have a conversation with him about that, because I think that the biology piece of gender, according to Tucker Carlson, is extremely overstated there, and he's seems to be underselling how important the cultural construction of gender actually is. So yeah, I would pick his brain on that. I think we would have a good talk.
No, you're on Tucker. it's not necessarily his curiosity, but it's his how do I say it? It's his, so like, I'm a little critical of Sam Harris insofar as I think he's got himself so stuck on these things that he's unable to see people, and he's a little self-righteous. But what you adore in him, and I would also, is he's a man of his convictions, and he's pretty immovable, right? He maybe is closed-minded, but he believes what he believes, and he's going to stay on that line through and through. So you find that more admirable. Where Tucker is kind of like, yesterday he was I'm going to swing it. Like yesterday he was a liberal, today he's a conservative. He's kind of like he's just ebbing and flowing and doesn't really seem to ever have an opinion that's his own. Or speak to why you don't like Tucker, or why you don't appreciate Tucker, or however you would say it.
G.K. Chesterton has a great quote, something like, "Do not be too open-minded that your brain falls out."
I'm probably guilty of that for everybody that
I think you are, and you shouldn't feel too bad about that. I think we all are, right? We are told that we need to be open-minded and just be able to engage with anything. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid of asking the questions, and just, see where it goes, and then you'll be able to decide what to make of it. And I think that's complete bullshit. People can't do that. Not because they're idiots, but because they're people, myself included. The extent to which I've ever, and I wouldn't be the one to judge this, but the extent to which I've ever been able to make good decisions, it can't be exclusively because of my own critical thinking skills. I must have been taught how to think critically and engage with challenging topics first. And then, after having been prepared for the challenge of doing so, ventured into, critical thinking, right? Because what is critical thinking? What is critical thinking? You have to have some standard against which to criticize whatever you're going to engage with, whatever new topic, new facts, new theories, new ways of thinking you're going to engage with. And if you go in with an open mind that is an empty mind, it's physically impossible to do any sort of critical thinking. And yeah, I think Tucker Carlson's guilty of this. I think Joe Rogan is extremely guilty of this. It's just being gullible. Joe Rogan is one of the most gullible people I've ever seen in my life. He'll believe anything. And he just has no bullshit detector. Some guy can get on his show and tell him about how, the warehouse stockpiling ivermectin, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe it was ivermectin, maybe it was something else. But the guy comes on and he's like, and did you know, they had warehouses of that in Africa, and they all got burnt down. And Joe was like, what? No way. Who did it? And he's like, I mean, who do you think did it? And Joe's like, man, dude, that's crazy, right? And you're like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Warehouses in Africa? What in the world? Yeah, I don't know. Joe Rogan, also seems like a great dude, but he's just not cut out for going where he's gone in an intelligent way. Why don't I like Tucker Carlson? Why don't I like Tucker? I think he's irresponsible with what he's doing. But at this point, I still maintain that he's irresponsible with what he's doing and what he's putting out there. I think it needs to happen, right? The Sam Harris method of accurately, I think, judging that people are too stupid to actually engage with this stuff intelligently, and so we just need to hide it from them. That's not going to work. People don't like being treated like they're stupid, even if they are stupid. So we have to get through this somehow. And I used to be on Sam Harris's side and say, we do need to tightly control the information that people have access to so that we're only letting good information out there, and then people can make good decisions. Because if it was all the information, the good and the bad, nobody would know the difference, and we would wind up where we are right now. And that made a lot of sense to me, but I think it's just unrealistic. I think Sam Harris has an unrealistic understanding of how these things actually work. And so I think as much as I used to not like it, I think we have to go the Tucker Carlson route. We have to live through the Tucker Carlson era of our civilization, and we'll see what happens on the other side. There's a great, to go back to your media question, I am, now that I think about it, I'm very, I don't consume a lot of it. Maybe other people are more plugged in than I am. I'm sure they are, but most of the media that I consume is right wing, because I just think that that's where we're headed. Despite the Muslim socialists that just took over New York, and so I am, as a recovering conservative and young Republican, I'm more interested in the right wing side of things because that's where I came from, and I think what's happening in right wing politics right now is very, very interesting. I'm really glad to see all the infighting and the incongruences and disparities within this big tent MAGA movement starting to realize that they actually don't get along, and something needs to give here. We got to fight through this and see which side of the movement comes out on top, or if it all just collapses. And yeah, there's a YouTube channel called European Conservative that I really like. They put out really good stuff. It's intellectual highbrow, or at least wannabe intellectual highbrow conservative content, but I think that we need to get rid of for the most part, conservative label and just call it right wing, for lack of a better term. Reactionary works. It's trying to not conserve the way things are, but trying to go back to the way things were before they were the way things are right now. Sebastian Morello is, I like this guy, and he's got a talk from 2 years ago. It's on National Conservatism's YouTube page. There's a talk that he gave at NatCon UK in 2023 May, and it's called "The Human Person is Endangered." And everybody should watch that. It's very, very good and very important. He said he talks about how the basis of our culture is this radical individualism, that the most important thing in a liberal culture, and I think this is true, is the sovereignty of the individual. And one of the problems, the threats to individual sovereignty, your own authentic, personal sovereignty, freedom, individual rights, is all of these things that are going to tell you not to do things your way, but to do things their way. So any hierarchical power structure, the church, families, schools, uh, any hierarchical ladder in a business, corporation, workplace, um, anything that tells you to do something that you don't want to do. And what your job is in a liberal society as a sovereign individual is to exercise all of these corrupting, authoritarian, tyrannical structures from your life. Because if you get rid of the church and the patriarchy and all of these other hierarchical power structures, supposedly what will be underneath this is your authentic personal self, who you really are. This is what we tell kids in school, to follow their dreams and do, be true to yourself, and find authentic modes of expression. Be your own person. Don't follow the crowd. Don't just do what you're told. Ask questions, right? So that you can be your own person. And turns out, I think that this is a lie. This is the idea that there is that fundamentally, naturally, biologically, there is a authentic human self, an authentic personal ego underneath all of the hierarchical, evil, tyrannical, hierarchical power structures that are telling you to live this way or that. That's nonsense. For most people, there is nothing underneath all of that other than biology, base animalistic instincts to eat and drink and stay alive and have sex. And that is a far cry from, a well integrated, developed, expressive human person, right? Which is far removed from an animal. There's something much more noble about a human person than just the animalistic drives. And so this idea of ridding yourself of culture and religion and family, all of these things will reveal something worth revealing. The free sovereign individual is nonsense. And I think a lot of what we've done is essentially expose that. And so what do people do when they are deprived of all of these hierarchical cultural heritages that give people grounding and tell people what to do? Well, when you get rid of all of that, people, they become very open-minded, right? They'll believe anything because they're just starving for something to tell them what to do with their life, because nobody knows by themselves what to do here. They need to be told. We need to be told what to do. That's what all of these things used to do for us. Tradition, heritage, culture, religion, society, the state, schools. We got rid of all that shit because we're liberal and enlightened. That's the type of, that's a big part of the discourse and philosophy coming out of right-wing politics right now that I actually really appreciate, even though large swaths of right-wing politics right now are also deplorable, using that word purposely. And so I think that's very interesting. I do remain largely sympathetic to liberalism, but I think we need to recognize that liberalism, it's not an objective ideology that can just exist anywhere in any place at any time the same way it could at some other place and time. And it can't. Liberalism of Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, or even across the ocean of, Goethe or Nietzsche, in a way, actually. These were very special people. They were people who stood on the shoulders of giants. They stood at the end of a long progression and heritage and tradition of Western culture, not Western culture in the cartoonish version of Jordan Peterson and the Daily Wire clowns, but actual Western culture in its lofty. Maybe it was ivermectin, maybe it was something else, but the guy comes on and he's like, and did you know, they had warehouses of that in Africa and they all got burnt down. And Joe was like, what? No way. Who did it? And he's like, I mean, who do you think did it? And Joe's like, man, dude, that's crazy, right? And you're like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Warehouses in Africa? What in the world? Yeah, I don't know. Joe Rogan, also seems like a great dude, but he's just not cut out for going where he's gone in an intelligent way. I think he's irresponsible with what he's doing, but at this point, I still maintain that he's irresponsible with what he's doing and what he's putting out there. I think it needs to happen, right? The Sam Harris method of accurately, I think, judging that people are too stupid to actually engage with this stuff intelligently, and so we just need to hide it from them. That's not going to work. People don't like being treated like they're stupid, even if they are stupid. So we have to get through this somehow. And I used to be on Sam Harris's side and say, we do need to tightly control the information that people have access to so that we're only letting good information out there and then people can make good decisions. Because if it was all the information, the good and the bad, nobody would know the difference and we would wind up where we are right now. And that made a lot of sense to me, but I think it's just unrealistic. I think Sam Harris has an unrealistic understanding of how these things actually work. And so I think as much as I used to not like it, I think we have to go the Tucker Carlson route. We have to live through the Tucker Carlson era of our civilization, and we'll see what happens on the other side. There's a great, to go back to your media question, I am, now that I think about it, I'm very, I don't consume a lot of it, maybe other people are more plugged in than I am. I'm sure they are. But most of the media that I consume is right wing, because I just think that that's where we're headed, despite the Muslim socialists that just took over New York, and so I am as a recovering conservative and young Republican. I'm more interested in the right-wing side of things because that's where I came from. And I think what's happening in right-wing politics right now is very, very interesting. I'm really glad to see all the infighting and the incongruences and uh, disparities within this big tent MAGA movement starting to realize that they actually don't get along, and something needs to give here. We got to fight through this and see which side of the movement comes out on top, or if it all just collapses. And yeah, there's a YouTube channel called European Conservative that I really like. They put out really good stuff. It's intellectual highbrow, or at least wannabe intellectual highbrow conservative content. But I think that we need to get rid of for the most part, conservative label and just call it right wing, for lack of a better term. Reactionary works. It's trying to not conserve the way things are, but trying to go back to the way things were before they were the way things are right now. And there's a talk there. It's called, look this up. I think it was a NatCom, a National Conservative Conference. No, it's not what I just sent. Sebastian Morello is, I like this guy, and he's got a talk from 2 years ago. It's on National Conservatism's YouTube page. There's a talk that he gave at NatCon UK in 2023 May, and it's called "The Human Person is Endangered." And everybody should watch that. It's very good and very important. He said he talks about how the basis of our culture is this radical individualism, that the most important thing in a liberal culture, and I think this is true, is the sovereignty of the individual. And one of the problems, the threats to individual sovereignty, your own authentic personal sovereignty, freedom, individual rights, is all of these things that are going to tell you not to do things your way, but to do things their way. So any hierarchical power structure, the church, families, schools, any hierarchical ladder in a business, corporation, workplace, anything that tells you to do something that you don't want to do. And what your job is in a liberal society as a sovereign individual is to exercise all of these corrupting, authoritarian, tyrannical structures from your life. Because if you get rid of the church and the patriarchy and all of these other hierarchical power structures, supposedly what will be underneath this is your authentic personal self, who you really are. This is what we tell kids in school, to follow their dreams and do, be true to yourself and find authentic modes of expression. Be your own person. Don't follow the crowd. Don't just do what you're told. Ask questions, right? So that you can be your own person. Turns out, I think that this is a lie. This is the idea that there is that fundamentally, naturally, biologically, there is a authentic human self, an authentic personal ego underneath all of the hierarchical, evil, tyrannical, hierarchical power structures that are telling you to live this way or that. That's nonsense. For most people, there is nothing underneath all of that other than biology, base animalistic instincts to eat and drink and stay alive and have sex. And that is a far cry from, a well integrated, developed, expressive human person, right? Which is far removed from an animal. There's something much more noble about a human person than just the animalistic drives. And so this idea of ridding yourself of culture and religion and family, all of these things will reveal something worth revealing. The free, sovereign individual is nonsense. And I think a lot of what we've done is essentially expose that. And so what do people do when they are deprived of all of these hierarchical cultural heritages that give people grounding and tell people what to do? Well, when you get rid of all of that, people, they become very open-minded, right? They'll believe anything because they're just starving for something to tell them what to do with their life, because nobody knows by themselves what to do here. They need to be told. We need to be told what to do. That's what all of these things used to do for us. Tradition, heritage, culture, religion, society, the state, schools. We got rid of all that shit because we're liberal and enlightened. That's the type of, that's a big part of the discourse and philosophy coming out of right-wing politics right now that I actually really appreciate, even though large swaths of right-wing politics right now are also deplorable, using that word purposely. And so I think that's very interesting. I do remain largely sympathetic to liberalism, but I think we need to recognize that liberalism, it's not an objective ideology that can just exist anywhere, in any place, at any time, the same way it could at some other place in time. And it can't. Liberalism of Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, or even across the ocean of, Goethe or Nietzsche, in a way, actually. These were very special people. They were people who stood on the shoulders of giants. They stood at the end of a long progression in heritage and tradition of Western culture. Not Western culture in the cartoonish version of Jordan Peterson and the Daily Wire clowns, but actual Western culture in its lofty and accomplished, amazing form that it was at the end of the 18th, beginning of the 19th century in Europe and in America. And the founding fathers were liberals, but they were also really amazing people. And to take those ideas and to give them to very unremarkable people like today's American population and expect that ideology to bear the same fruits that it did in the hands and minds of the founding generation of this country is foolish. It's not going to work because there is no authentic individual. The amazing individuals that were the founding fathers of this country, they were crafted by their time, their culture, their traditions. They were well read. They were very steeped in history, and they were able to accomplish things and change the world and unleash into the world, or propagate into the world, a brand new way of thinking about things, a liberal ideology. But the people today, their minds are AI generated Instagram reels. You give them the same ideology, liberal ideology, you're going to get very, very different results. So, hence the decline of liberalism.
You criticize Tucker, you criticize Joe Rogan, you criticize Jordan Peterson, you criticize, and I think it's good. You criticize the American populace, which I would agree. Like, we're more or less not smart. And then you praise the men of, I'm not sure who they are that you're speaking to. I guess, can we drill in? Because I think what's interesting is I was very critical of Sam Harris for reasons that you would dote on him. And I think generally what happens is you say something and then I wrestle with it for 6 months. I'm like, oh yeah, he was more right, And so the big thing that I think that's interesting, because we've been iterating, my discovery last year was like, curiosity is the cure to all hate. And I don't know that you would move me off of this, but I think you'd also bring me into a place of the caution of curiosity, which I'm ready to go to. But it's like, so I'll give you my thesis first, but I really want to give you, particularly for those that don't know you. And I wanted to say it this way. It seems the academics kind of like, and I don't know if that's a term that you endear or don't, but the academics seem to be pretty critical of general populace. And I think you guys are on a different, those of you that are well read and like, you can say something like Jordan Peterson's a fool. And most of us unimpressive people are like, whoa, bro, like, who are you? Like, who are you to say that? And like, my instinct would be to be like, this pompous. And I'm actually, as we're talking about it, I did get this reaction. My buddy Timmy was like, that fucking know-it-all. More, he's a Christian, so he didn't say it that way. But like, he's like, that know-it-all. And I'm like, okay, so let me walk this back, because I think what you're able to say, like, we would not, I mean, even me, right? I run a $100 million company. I'm a very capable dude, but I'm like, who am I to call anybody else a fool that I don't know, right? It's like, but I think you guys in your sphere, it's like, well, I've read about them all and I know this man really well. So I guess before I let you dive in, because I think you'll go for a minute, my theory is we can't know much. We ought to explore to know as much as we can, but we ought to wonder greatly. And as soon as it is that we become rigid about something that we know, and you can take anything, once you know something and you've accepted it as truth, it is not to be fucked with, right? You close your mind to any outside anything, and then you're afraid of anything that might also be true. And then you start barking at people. So I'm like, man, I think curiosity is the solve to all things. But if you just run around the world curious and never form an opinion, then you're just, what would you say?
Blowing in the wind.
Tall grass blowing in the wind. So, and I'll say one other thing. Like, I find you show me somebody that's very convicted and changes their mind, I'll show you somebody you can trust. You show me somebody that is never convicted, I wouldn't listen to that person. And you show me somebody that just won't move, they have an agenda and they're biased. You can't trust them. They're coming. So I guess floor is yours. Maybe start with why you can so confidently, as like you're just a Marine lawyer, know nothing, let's go to the average Joe. You can comfortably say to these people that are pillars in our society, those are fools. And you say it without trepidation, like those are fools. And I tend to agree with you. I would want to know them, so I wouldn't call them fools because I know their ego is going to get in the way of any conversation if I deem them otherwise. But I think it'd be really interesting to explore how you can so comfortably, and I think the other thing that I want to take a pause and recognize, I'm trying to this is a lay person interpreting a academic, is like you said, I don't disdain. You would err on the side of rejecting Tucker Carlson, but you think he's a good dude and you'd want to get to know him and you think you'd get along. The ease at which you did that, just so you know, it's not normal. Normally, if people don't like people, they don't want to hang out with them. And I don't think you ever said you didn't like him. So anyway, take us on an academic journey, Matt. I love this. I love that your mind is going to be out there for people because I think it's really special.
On Jordan Peterson, I don't like Jordan Peterson because the things that I care most about that he is picking up on, I think he's wrong about. But there are many other things that I care less about that he's also talking about, right? Jordan Peterson is talking about everything from why it's important to clean your room and keep your house clean and stay on top of house chores. And he's also talking about how to interpret Genesis from the Bible. So there's a lot of room there for agreement and disagreement. And I'm not a Jordan Peterson scholar either. So if there are listeners here who are Jordan Peterson fanatics and have listened to every one of his podcast episodes and read all of his books, maybe you'll see that I'm wrong about a couple of things. But from my understanding, he wears several hats, one of which is this kind of self-help guru for young men who in their present state are ostensibly extremely immature and need to grow the fuck up. And Jordan Peterson is going to be the male role model in their lives, probably because there are none other, and show them how to take responsibility for themselves, for their actions, to have develop some self-restraint, some self-discipline, to not act impulsively, to try to think critically as they negotiate decision points in their life, and teach them that instant gratification. This is a huge part for him, I think, is that is seeking to satisfy instant gratifications is nowhere near in the long run as fundamentally fulfilling as taking on huge responsibilities that require sacrifice and dedication and hard work, and developing that and engaging with that through trial and error and struggle and good times and bad over the course of your life. This is probably something like getting married and raising a family, but I suppose it could be other things too. This is where real fulfillment in a well-lived life comes from. I have absolutely nothing critical or negative to say about that, and I'm certainly have to acknowledge that Jordan Peterson has to have done a fair amount of good in the world in the way that he's been able to connect with an audience of young men that needed that connection and that guidance, and probably has made them into better people. So just want to start with that. Jordan Peterson also does this other thing where he is going to kind of do this Jungian interpretation of Christianity. So he's going to do a psychoanalysis, a psychoanalytic interpretation of Christianity. I think this is an interesting exercise. I think the conclusions that he comes to on certain things are just wrong, and you know, we disagree. So that's fine. I'm not particularly offended by that. But through no fault of his own, back in 2012 or whenever it was, Jordan Peterson was the unfortunate victim of a mob of left-wing, whiny students who essentially got him fired from his job at the University of Toronto and kicked off of campus because he refused to affirm their genders and chosen genders and use their preferred pronouns. And again, not the stance that I would have taken on that issue. So I think Jordan Peterson and I would disagree on certain things with regard to so-called trans rights or gender theory. But, you know, I'm not offended by any of that. But in the aftermath of all of this, he did become some sort of right-wing celebrity, and his audience shifted in that direction. And I think he did succumb to a fair amount of audience capture, and a lot of his topics and a lot of his talks became politically coded in a way that I found obnoxious and unintelligent. I don't know if I have any real examples here, but you know, he's also a human being engaged, charting a course through this strange time in history as things fall apart, and we're all going to make missteps. We're all going to, have a text message or a tweet out there that we probably shouldn't have sent in hindsight. And Jordan Peterson definitely has a fair amount of those, and I'm aware of all of his stupid things that he said, and he's aware of none of mine. So, got to give him a little bit of grace there. But I think to get to what really drives me crazy about him is he's one of these guys who he invokes some sort of a call to arms in defense of Western civilization. Western civilization is apparently failing, being destroyed by the radical leftists, and it's up to us, Jordan Peterson and his disciples, to save Western civilization. Now, I agree that Western civilization is failing. I actually think Western civilization has failed. I think Western civilization failed over 100 years ago. World War I was the destruction of Western civilization. But there's something just cartoonish and ridiculous to me about Jordan Peterson and his disciples being the defenders of Western civilization, because they can't be. They are so, like, Jordan Peterson, I'm not saying he's a dumb person. He's obviously not. But he's not somebody who's steeped enough in the products and heritage of Western civilization to really be its defender. And neither are his compatriots over at the Daily Wire. And this has become more of a right-wing political performance, than it is in any than it has any authentic connection with Western civilization. And I think the reason why this is so frustrating or just annoying to me is because you can't actually have read and engaged with the foundational texts of Western civilization, from Shakespeare to John Milton's Paradise Lost to Goethe's Faust, and everything in between, and following that, and come to the conclusions, very partisan conclusions about things that Jordan Peterson has. And so I just think it's dishonest or ignorant for him to claim that he is a defender of Western civilization, because he's not. He might be the progenitor of something new, but it's not what he thinks it is. One thing that I hate is there is this account of history that says there's this thing called Western civilization, which is obscure at best, but take it with a grain of salt. There's this thing called Western civilization. It has its roots somehow in both Athens and in Jerusalem, and you trace those roots through Rome, through England to America, the American founding. Now, this is a tenuous history, but we'll roll with it. And they say in America founded a civilization based on Western cultural values, traditions, and heritage. A Judeo-Christian heritage is also a Western heritage. I don't know. It's hard to fit all of this in together, but again, we'll roll with it. And but then around the 20th century, or 19th century into the 20th century, something went wrong. Something went awry. Something that was not supposed to happen happened. And what was this thing is Marxism, right? And so you have Western civilization, and then you have the contra-Western civilization, which is Marx. And everything that comes after Marx is this anomaly, this aberration, something that wasn't supposed to happen. And so all of the people who follow Marx, especially into the 20th century, Michel Foucault, these are the other boogeymen, Jordan Peterson's boogeymen, the postmodernists. So Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida, Lacan, and mostly French guy. They are the destroyers of Western civilization. They come from Marx. They're cultural Marxists, and so on and so forth. And I just, there's only so much I can take in terms of stretching actual history and the history of ideas here. To say that Marx, to say that Michel Foucault, any of these guys are something other than the product of Western civilization is ridiculous. And it's a misunderstanding of what Western civilization is. Western civilization, if Western civilization includes Aristotle, then Western civilization must include Karl Marx. If Western civilization includes, I don't know, Immanuel Kant, then it must include Nietzsche. If Western civilization includes the Maestra, then it must include Michel Foucault and Derrida and Deleuze and Guattari and Debord and Baudrillard and the rest of all of Jordan Peterson's antichrists. So I think that we've gotten to my actual beef with Jordan Peterson. I think his history is wrong. I think his history of ideas is wrong, where he thinks that something terrible happened when the Marxists took over Western civilization, and this was like an invasion from the outside. Like, no, these guys were German and they were French. They weren't Chinese. They weren't, Arab. They were Western. They were European. And so that needs to be accounted for. And I think that's where right-wing interpretation of history is wrong. It's just factually wrong. And, I am very partial to Western civilization. I am a product of Western civilization. I have no illusions about that, and I don't feel bad about it either. But I think that to understand our roots as Westerners and the cultural achievements of Western and European civilization, we can't just cut out some of the most important contributors to this heritage and tradition from the last 200 years. That would include Marx and the so-called Marxists that followed him. So yeah, that's why I don't like Jordan Peterson. And I to not see that and to call yourself some sort of public intellectual, I can't take seriously. And so I understand it's important to clean your room and be disciplined. And this is important, and I'm glad somebody's out there saying it. But this whole paranoia about the cultural Marxists it's a little ridiculous to me.
You're upset because he's talking about something he clearly doesn't know something about, and he ought to know more about it before he talks about it.
Right, especially since he's talking to an audience who knows even less about it, right? Which I would say is irresponsible.
Yeah, I think the deep level of knowing that you have is fleeting. I mean, not to say that we all shouldn't, but it's like I think very few are in yours and Sam Harris's world. Very few are equipped to have opinions that they should be out in the public space talking about, and that's interesting. It's so interesting, right? Like, I mean, I think that's what I've been really reticent about too. But if you want to call it my platform or whatever, like I'm just advertising that I don't know, and I think Rogan does that as well. So I guess let's talk about that. Like, what's dangerous about exploring things you don't know out loud? As long understanding there's a difference between Jordan Peterson and Rogan. Rogan is not campaigning for anything, but he is influencing a lot of people, and I see him inspiring curiosity in people. Obviously, there was a want for it, and there's a market for it. But would you fall into you would fall into Sam's critique of him that these explorations are dangerous because people aren't equipped to actually go explore them at the breadth that they would need to be explored? Or I'm putting words in your mouth, so why don't you answer that for yourself instead?
With those words being put in my mouth, I think the last thing you said there, I would agree with. Yeah, it's dangerous. Now, it's dangerous to kind of give these cursory engagements with new ideas in even a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast platform. That's still really not enough time to really get anything more than little like provocative sound bites that lodge in people's heads so that they can go and like say things that sound cool and edgy at their office party after spending 3 hours listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, right? And it's just pushing the boundary, right? Like there's value in something because of its obscurity, right? Obscurity, fringe status. These are values, right? They're to a Joe Rogan audience. And I don't trust that heuristic, that which has been suppressed or that which I have never heard of must have been something that the elites were trying to hide from me. And so it must be true. That's not a good heuristic. And I don't know if Joe Rogan has ever explicitly endorsed that view, but it seems to have been the takeaway for a lot of his listeners. And hey, look, that's where we are. So I've spent too much time complaining about it and worrying about it and listening to Sam Harris complain about it, and I'm over it. That's just who we are. But yeah, but I think that I would agree that if you read enough, you can start calling bullshit on these people. And so if you want to protect against talking heads telling you how to think, or not telling you how to think, but just unconsciously shaping how you think, because you're just uncritically hearing and accepting these things, and it's shaping your mind and shaping how you see things. And you want to protect yourself from that. And you want to protect yourself from not only the, Bill Gates version of the world corrupting how you think, but you also want to be able to call bullshit and protect yourself from Tucker Carlson and Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson's view of the world, and not just be their puppets either. Then just read anything. I mean, if you're actually reading and engaging with stuff, I don't know. It's dangerous, but I think that's the first step. And then you can, you'll start hearing stuff, and you'll be like, that's just not true. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I've read that book. He's not right. And you'll start seeing so many of these books have this pop culture interpretation that's also not true. In the same way that the Bible does. There's a big difference between people who know the stories and know what they're supposed to mean, and people who've actually sat down and read the stories. And you're like, well, that's actually a lot different than what I was originally told. So I mean, if there's one thing I could advocate for, it would be just read.
When you look around the world from your lens, is it a bunch of people that don't know what they don't know much about much, and they don't care to get informed about much, but they do have the time to get emotional about much? Or how would you, and I guess the second question is as somebody, I think by all accounts, as far as knowing about the world around me, I think I would fail yours and Sam Harris's test. Insofar as I don't understand the history, I would have said Karl Marx bad, and I have read is it the Communist Manifesto. I've read it twice, because for me it's if you're going to hate something, you better learn it, and I don't know that.
You don't have to like it. I mean, hey, you don't have to like it.
No, but in order to have a strong opinion, I mean, that's where I think
but you've read it, so that's great. I would only disagree with you, and if you were going to tell me that this was not part of the Western canon of thought, that's Jordan Peterson's thing. I do not.
So I guess I'm going to consider myself, for purposes of our conversation, I'm going to say I understand the world around me. I'll put myself in the top 10% of people that are able to see the world around them and find success in it, right? To effectuate financial independence, time independence, total freedom from the system. I played that game well, so I understand how to build businesses, lead people, sell, relationally, right? I would think that I probably could take you and Sam Harris to business school, to people school. And I wouldn't want to say leadership school because you're a Marine with me, but it's I've learned a lot more hiring and firing hundreds of people than I have, leading people that are forced under my employ. So different strokes, different folks, but it's So I'm an expert in my field, right? Is what I would say. And I don't have time to, well, I shouldn't say that. Because of my given expertise, I have less time to invest in what you're an expert in. But I also want to be aware and I want to have an opinion. So I guess all that said, I've read Communist Manifesto. I haven't read Dostoevsky. I'm like reading more because of you in my life, but I'm like reading more and more. But presuming it's more important for people to come study in my lane, which I'm going to say is financial freedom, business freedom, or financial and personal like well-being, right? Like arguably, I would tell you that both pursuits are trivial, right? To know all these things is trivial, and to be financially, chasing money is trivial, right? So we can get into the spectacle later. But I think the world is made up of more people more worried about making money, surviving, buying their next house, passive income, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying they should, Matt. I'm not saying they should. I think you're probably a more richer journey would be to explore history, to be an academic, but you're never going to make a whole bunch of money being an academic. But so supposing that I'm right and that 80% of people are interested in how do I make more money? How do I have a nicer car? How do I buy a bigger house, right? How do we go about the world? You know what I mean? Like where the easiest place for me to access information is listening to Joe Rogan, is listening to Jordan Peterson. And then I find Sam Harris to be dismissive of me. So I don't like to listen to him. How do we bridge that gap, do you think? Because I think your types, the academics, would be serving our types, the painfully money pursuing, I'm going to say, types. You would be doing us a great service if you could approach us more compassionately and seek to educate us, right? And I'm sure there's resources out there, but they're not as sexy and fun as Joe Rogan or Sean Ryan and all of that. So it's like, I guess what I'm asking is, how do we make academics sexier? That doesn't sound like go home and read a book. And maybe, Matt, that's the very problem, right? Maybe that's what gets into your AI thing is like, we need humans to be humans. We need to go, and I'm a big dude, I think people should go split wood. Like you should go forage and go be human again. And maybe you would say you need to go engage with the books. But supposing that nobody's going to order Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or any of those after this conversation, how would you recommend we as a society bridge from mostly unknowing and emotionally invested, stupid? I'm going to call it stupid. I think it's fair to say we're mostly stupid. How do we go closer to better thinking and better reasoning and being, I would say what you said is equip yourself, right? Equip yourself to have an opinion that matters before you go have an opinion that affects your life, because people are forming opinions about things they know nothing about, right? And we're seeing this. I think you and I are a little bit farther up the chain now. We used to be talking about what Trump had for breakfast. Now we're talking about real things, but most of our peers in society, I think, are very much forming opinions about things unknowing. So how would we go about tripping that sensor? If that makes any sense, and as you always do, feel free to reframe me.
Yeah, I will. I mean, Kevin, can't you do this for me? I mean, you're a business genius and you had all this experience, but I spent the last 10 years just reading obscure books. Can't you make me an app or something that's cool and sexy and just in when on my off time, when it's convenient to me, as I'm driving in the car, I can just learn all.
All right, let me index you. So let's flip the scales. Let's say you spent your whole fucking life being an academic and you now want to come and make money. And I tell you, well, fuck off, dude. You better get in the trenches and go dig a hole. Exactly. I'm not helping your ass.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do here. And I think you would be right to say that, right? I can't learn what you know from your experience, from the actual in the trenches experience, from a seminar from you, no matter how nice you are to me and open you are with me. If you're going to be my coach while I'm doing it, I'm going to start a business and you're going to be my coach and I'm doing it, but I have you in the background helping me. Well, great, right? Then but I need to do it, right? I have to put in the fucking work. And if I'm going to learn that skill. Okay. And I think the same thing flips in the other direction. Like, you just, there's no one's gonna do it for you. Like, no one teaches somebody else how to think this way or that way. Like, there needs to be.
I'm with you.
You know?
You got me.
Yeah.
You got me there. So now what I'm going to move away from. I mean, I think you already did it. You already started it, and I'm going to put it on the website. Your reading guide, and so I think what we're going to set out to do here. I'm volunteering you, but you're going to take me on the journey to being aware, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be more aware, and I don't know. Are we talking about historical awareness? Are we talking about the liturgical? What would you say? Literacy? More literacy? What would it? So make the pitch. That's what I was going to say. So let's say my people are not academics. We went to the school to make money, to be free, to freaking change the world, to develop product. We are marketers, right? We are market whores. That's my people. So now they're listening to this and they're like, this, and then I'm sorry, we're gonna demonize you here, but this snobby-nosed academic Matt, who thinks he knows everything, wants me to do what? And I want you to be tolerant of their view of that. And then, like, what is that? What is at stake for us? Like, why is it worth doing? And I suspect you're going to tell me, well, it's not. But what's the difference? Like, I think it is worth doing. I think it is really what a discovery that we've been. Yeah.
Then great. It's gotta come from you. Like, that's great. You know, if you have that spark, like I did, when for me, it was, I had gone many years without reading anything. And I went many years, not hustling, trying to make money, but just partying, essentially, drinking way too much and partying way too much in college and even after college. And Jordan Peterson would have been very disgruntled at the lack of responsibility and discipline in my life. And I just had enough of it at some point and wanted to live differently. And I don't know, I had some sort of spark. I don't know. The first book I picked up, I had recently moved to California, and I was in this big, like, I'm 23 years old, and I'm going to turn my life around, because already by 23, I've decided that, I'm a complete fuck up. And, and I was at the beach, by myself. I spent a lot of time by myself. That was really good for me. In growing out of this, I was spending no time by myself for a long time, and that was very unhealthy. And I don't know. I just went into a bookstore, and I knew Hemingway was supposed to be like a manly thing to read, masculine thing to read, and I had read Hemingway in high school, one Hemingway novel in high school, and I remember liking it, and so I just bought it again, and I just reread it, and I hadn't read it since high school, and I didn't really remember it, and I liked it in high school, but I don't think I got anything much of it in high school, and I loved it. It just sat there on the beach and read the whole damn thing at once, and it was great, and that was just, I don't know, that was just the start of something aligned. It clicked in me, in my head, where I was in life, and it just happened, and it really made me who I am today, and that's great. I don't regret it. I'm thankful for it. But I don't know, like, not everybody has anything remotely close to that experience. And so if anybody listening to this has some sort of spark and inspiration to read more, and you want to talk to me about that, then please hit me up. or hit up Kevin and he can get you my contact information. I'm happy to, and really, truly would love to engage with anybody starting out on that journey or is well into it and also just want somebody to talk about. Because the other weird thing that happens is like you go and start reading all of this stuff and it's very clear that there are millions of people that have read all of this stuff, but you don't know any of them. You know, everything's so dispersed and atomized on the internet now. You know, you say you're like, I don't know anybody who's read Dostoevsky, right? Like, who's read Dostoevsky? And I'm like, I'm thinking, dude, millions of people have read Dostoevsky. It's like the most common thing that you read when you start reading. But also I'm thinking, well, I don't actually know any of those people though. Like, I don't know anybody who's read Dostoevsky except for my fiance. So it's weird. And yeah, if we want to, you know, if there's anybody out there who wants to build that connection with somebody who also likes reading that stuff, then yeah, that'd be awesome. And for you, Kevin, yeah, like anytime you have the itch to go and read something and you want to like do like a book club thing where we read it together or some, I don't know, anything like that along those lines, definitely totally down. But there's no, I don't know, there's no obligation to do this. If you don't have the inspiration to become a bookworm, then that's fine. It's absolutely fine. And, you know, we'll get along without.
We're on the journey. I think we're already starting it with this Saturday thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So everybody's invited to that if they want to come study with Matt, myself, and a couple of buddies that didn't come. But I think the thing I'd like to drill into a little bit more. So you found yourself. This is interesting because you found yourself at the intersection that most people find Jesus, right? So you were kind of out of college. Like, what am I living for? Is that when you joined the Marine Corps too, or was that always?
No, I had gone through all the intro stuff, MOS pipeline, and I just finally reached my first duty station, 29 Palms, and. So this was after like you and I lived together in Georgia. And at that point I was starting to like come out of this. And like, as you guys all knew, spend a lot more time by myself. That was very important for me to kind of reassess and start some things fresh. And yeah, you saw kind of the cutting edge of that process.
That's so interesting. Yeah, but you said you read Hemingway. Hemingway kind of unlocked you to.
Yeah, I just started with like, all right, there were a handful of books that I liked reading in high school, so I'll just go back to them and read them again. And yeah.
So interesting, man. I think the question I would say is, as a scholar, so let's just go into the world, your worldview. What would I be missing? What is it that I'm missing, or what might I find? You know what I mean? Like I can pitch Jesus. I can't really pitch this scholar journey. I didn't even know that's where we were going. So, but like, what is it that's what is on the other side of this? Obviously, like what? Tell me. Make a compelling case for why somebody should not be chasing more money and might want to explore literature in a more real level. Like, what would be the user case? For me, I can speak to it. It's like I've recognized just in talking to you how I don't want to say it this way because I'm really a deep thinker relative to my peers. I mean, I guess I'll give myself that credit. I can't wait for my friends to all rip me for that. But I mean, I don't ever take it, right? I question all things and I question it at a deep level. And that's why I've kind of reinvented my faith for the third or fourth time here. And this version seems to be the best version, to be honest. But, you know, so it's easy for me to say, hey, I'm walking around life ignorantly and my understanding of the world around me is shallow and I want a deeper one, right? And that's where I'm like, okay, this seems like a really good place to start to go to have a deeper understanding of the world around me. And then like I can engage in conversations and can understand the academic world as I understand the business world. So for me, it's just a better rounding of human for me to be, right? Like I've done the military thing, I've done the business thing, I've done the spiritual thing. I really haven't. I just checked the boxes. I don't think academia, I don't think we should call a bachelor's degree in accounting anything academic. You know, like that's really, to me, there's nothing to that. I read a bunch of textbooks by it. I mean, it's bullshit. It was really bullshit. So anyway, this is fun for me at 35 years old to go and be like, all right, I'm going to try to be an academic for a little while. And you know what, Matt? I'm such a slow reader, so that'll be good. Maybe at the end of this, I'll be a faster reader.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a slow reader. I am a slow reader too, and I think that's good. You take the time. It's not a race. It's not a rush. It's not a competition. But my pitch would go back to what we were talking about at the beginning. There's no such thing as your authentic self. It's constructed. It's constructed through your experiences, whatever those experiences are. There's no subtractive method where you can get rid of this thing, this oppressive force in your life that's forcing you to do this, and this oppressive force is forcing you to do that, and it will reveal your own independent, authentic, free, liberal self. That's bullshit. It's not real. There's nothing there to find. It's additive. And the question is just, what are you adding to make yourself, to construct yourself? And everything and everyone around you is competing to make you into what they want you to be. This is where the liberal criticism is correct. They are trying to change your mind. They being everybody from, Bill Gates to Tucker Carlson. They're all trying to get at your head, get at you, and create you into how they want you to be. And you have no choice. I mean, there's no way to escape becoming the product of what you consume. You are what you eat, but you can choose what you eat. And why would you not want to consume the best food for your mind? And I think part of that healthy diet is literature. It's good literature. And what is good literature? I don't know. We can argue about that. But whatever it is, it should be something that you're putting into your head. And yeah, why would you spend your time consuming the shit that we all know is shit? We all know it's junk food, but we still eat McDonald's. We all know it's shit, but we still scroll through Instagram, right? It's just, you will become a better person. You will become a higher person. You're able to look out, standing on the shoulders of the great men and women who have come before us and wrote their thoughts down and their experiences down and their perspectives down. And you can integrate all of that and take the next step, which I think is important. I think a lot of people look back at old books and want to read old books so that they can retreat backwards and learn about the way things used to be and try to become the way things used to be. And I think is a waste of time too. What we're trying to do is read all of the old stuff in the progression of ideas as it develops in our culture, and then move to the next step, right? You talk about what's this next step, what's on the other side of this cultural moment. Is that going to come from, because we had absolutely empty minds, open minds, and we filled it with Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, and we took the next step from there? Or is it going to be because we filled our minds with everything from, Genesis through Virgil and Dante and Shakespeare and Milton and Nietzsche and Marx, including Marx, and Thomas Jefferson and Michel Foucault and Rene Girard, and then what's next, right? And now that you've consumed all of that and have engaged with all of that, now you can see from that standpoint, that higher standpoint, you can look out and look down on everything around you, and also look out to whatever comes next. That would be my pitch.
And yeah, it's interesting. It's so interesting to think if you read more history, you'll find a more. So I become a more informed and aware. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm subjecting. So
history,
I want to explain.
But history is good. But I think you have to include the fiction with it. You need the novels. You need the poetry. You need the plays. You need the music. And it's got to be all of it. History is good, right? History is important too. But you get a lot of history, and you add to history too with the perspective and understanding of what the art was like at the time. That's key. To
So help me understand. Sorry, I totally. I'm oversimplifying when I say history. I'm just historical literature. So that's good. A good distinction. But help me. So I'm like. So I have been, let's talk about Kevin. Let's say how have I been formed? So I've been shaped by my experiences. I've been shaped by my trauma. I've been shaped by my ability to kind of see that trauma and grow out of it. I've been shaped by coming to faith. I've been shaped, I'm going to say it again, by mostly I've been shaped by those around me, right? And those are the brothers, yourself. And I've got brothers in Christ. I got brothers in arms. I got brothers from high school. I got brothers from college. I've grown with them, grown out of them, grown back into them, right? I've been shaped by the men around me and the mentors that I've had. I would tell you that, I'm a rich man based on money. It's weird to say that out loud knowing it's recorded, but I've just got to face the music. I never wanted to be, but I am. But I think the richness of me is in my relationship, right? And I would put mine up against anybody's. Anywhere I would have that duel, and I'd be very comfortable that if you took my army of relationships and you put it against the best of them, I don't care what the challenge is, I think I'll win. But so that's been shaping for me. So I don't know why I had to have an egotistical rant in the middle of this, but so I've been shaped by my friends, I've been shaped by my experiences, I've been shaped by my upbringing, I've been shaped by my faith, and then what I would say I could be critical of is I was conditioned to think, right? So I had a father that was a Republican. So it wasn't until college that I started scratching my head going they all sound stupid. Right? The whole that was Obama time for me. It's I don't know why I'm supposed to hate this guy, but I don't hate him that much. I did. I definitely did. And then I was like, why did I just decided to hate this guy because I told it also, anyway, that's when I started really questioning things. And so, my dad had a big influence on me that way. And so I would be, and I'd say that the church had a big influence on me, right? I was conditioned to believe these certain sets of things, and these are values, and this is what it looks like. And it was good. I think it was really good, right? I think the Christian foundation, whether or not the Christian church is good or not, I think, the ideals that are embodied in a Christian church, I think are much better than others. So we'll say it that way. So that shaped me. And now I've kind of deconstructed the typical Christian world in favor of curiosity, love, compassion, and kind of just, I guess, my own rules, if you will. But we would say, let's just be critical of the church's influence on me. You kind of said Bezos or Musk or whatever. Everybody's influencing you through, whatever. They're after your mind, right? The church was after my mind, and it conditioned me to think a certain way. How is that any different than this path? I mean, technically, these authors have some type of something. You know what I mean? I guess how is it? Is it just a different version of it and a more pure version? Or how is this any different than just, I can't think of a parable, but how is this different? If you're saying I'm becoming a more pure version of myself, which is, I think, what you said.
There is no pure version of yourself, right? That's not a thing. It's not there. It's just.
I knew you were going to say that. As it came out of my fucking mouth, I was like, dang it. But carry on.
Yeah, no, that was my point, was that this quest for your authentic self is nonsense. But the quest for self-improvement is not nonsense, and the quest for learning isn't nonsense, and new experiences and so on, right? And no, I think your point about how is this any different, right? Like I could go to church and they could fill my head with church stuff. I could read Marx and fill my head with Marxist stuff. I could sit and listen to Nick Fuentes and fill myself with Nick Fuentes, right? So what's the difference?
You should have said bullshit. You should have said bullshit. You should have been authentic. I really wanted. I wanted you to land it. I don't know him.
I stopped myself. Yeah. No. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. There's some things that it's not really answerable. It's and this is not going to help my
who cares? Your public perception?
Yeah, that I'm an elitist asshole, which I probably am. Right? It's just a question of taste, right? I don't know. Maybe you just develop a good taste, and start to this, and at that point you can be grounded in your disdain and disgust and revulsion when you encounter something revolting. And also appreciate something beautiful when you encounter something beautiful. Like I think one place that where we are right now is nobody can tell the difference between, or maybe a better way of saying it is not that no one can tell a difference between the beautiful and the revolting, but nobody is revolted and nobody is, recognizes beauty. Whether, I'm not saying that everybody would have to look at the same thing and agree that thing is beautiful, but just to have the experience of, wow, that is beautiful. I don't think people like have that anymore. Everything is so vanilla, and we've been very desensitized to things. Anybody who Hillary Clinton, who reacts revolted to the deplorable Trump supporters. It's so put on. You're like, she's so clearly not revolted, right? It would have been better if she really was physically sick at the sight of these deplorable Trump supporters and was having an actual visceral, corporal, bodily reaction. This would have been something amazing. There's a great, one of my favorite writers is, art critic is Dave Hickey, amazing writer. And they just republished one of his books. And in it is an article that he wrote about Robert Mapplethorpe's, photography line. Which was, they were Polaroids that he took of men who were part of, 1970s, like underground homosexual counterculture. And they were graphic Polaroid pictures of really anatomically astounding performances and engagements, sexual acts. And this was released as art. And there were, everybody comes into these art museums and they see these like extremely hardcore, it's beyond hardcore images, right? Things that you've never seen before. And everybody was like, oh yes, you can tell this is great art by the use of shadows and color and the black and white photographs, and look at the way he sets his the object of in the lines of attention, and blah 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 blah. This like academic response to like literally a guy with a fist shoved up his ass, and right, and it's like, and then there's this Republican conservative senator from like South Carolina or something who is like losing his mind at how disgusting and how this is and how disgusted he is. These images have caused like bodily physical reactions in him. He's having a physical reaction to these images. They have taken over his soul, like a demon has possessed him. There is a magical cosmic connection between the image and who he is. Like he was going to, have a normal day and eat breakfast and check his email and whatever, right? And then he saw these things and he's completely derailed. They have possessed him, right? That's art, right? That's an amazing thing, right? To be able to do, right? With an image. And everybody else is like, oh, look at this homophobic conservative senator from South Carolina who just doesn't accept gay people or whatever. And Dave Hickey's point is like, no, he's the only one who got it, right? He's the only one who got the art, or the art got him, right? He had a physical reaction, a real connection with the image. It took over his soul, and that's powerful. That's something that doesn't happen anymore, right? That's something that doesn't happen on a day-to-day basis. And everything is so put on and staged, and we know that it's being staged, and we know that it's put on, and we know that it's all going according to a script. But we fake outrage at Nick Fuentes as if we were surprised that people were so anti-Semitic, and we fake outrage at the Muslim socialist who became governor of New York, and so on, right? And it's all bullshit. And to go back to where we were going, right? Like there's something real about real art when you really start engaging with it and being able to engage with it and flex that muscle of engaging with it, that you will be a changed person. You will enter a different world than you were in when the extent of your artistic development hasn't gone past. I don't know. I don't want to shit on pop culture, but pop culture, pop politics, all of that stuff, it's just filler. It's empty. It's not real. It doesn't mean anything, and it's just vapid and emotionless and soulless. And there's just better stuff out there, and it's just better.
I think what would be useful, and I'm gonna park us because I need to go finish moving in my house.
Yeah,
this
I
has
gotta
been
go
a great,
my fiance.
Been a great day, but I think the thing that would be fun, and I got to go check your reading list, and I'm going to engage with it, but it's kind of just if we charted the journey of where we're going to go, like what are we going to learn, like kind of like what is it I'm going to be enlightened to. It's going to be fun, but I guess I just want to ask one question. Like, I think I've told you that you're a special thinker, right? And I think one of the things that was tough for me was when I didn't recognize, kind of like I was asking people to be like me, and not everybody's like me. And I think some of maybe your frustration, one of two things, right? Like the only two academics I know, literally the only two I know, and I know a lot of people that sound like Trump, and I'm doing the Trump hands. I know a lot of people, but like I have a very deep network, but not of academics. And I'm curious if you guys are the Phoenixes, or it's because I only associate with business people, right? And so do you know a lot of people that you would call? And like, I don't know if you guys tier yourself as like, do you know a lot of your types? Is that something from law school, or are you just, you're a Phoenix in my world?
I'm just I don't know if I'm a Phoenix. But but I'm not the most social person. It's a lot of the stuff I do for me by myself. My fiance is the only other person who I know who reads this stuff and thinks about this stuff and is into this stuff. So that works great. That's very important to both of us to have somebody like that so close. And so that's very special. But and I'm sure other people who read all of these things and are into this kind of thing have friends and there are circles, and that sounds cool. I've never I'm like you. I've never really encountered that.
Well, I don't think you guys are. I think academics. You don't really need to talk to people either, right? You guys aren't community. Like, I mean, why would you? And I think that might be the very nature of it. But it's kind of mysterious. But I mean, on its face, I think on its face, if we didn't have a relationship, right, I would fall into the camp of some of my peers that listen to you and are like, oh, this guy's a know-it-all, or Sam, right? Where I'm critical of Sam. I think, you've pointed out that I'm probably critical of him for the wrong reasons, but it's because he's not like me. And he can say things like that person is a fool and understand that person is a fool. But I also think it's unfair to call that person a fool because that person doesn't know what they don't know sometimes, right? That's where I would think. But this is going to be interesting, actually. It's going to be interesting.
I agree, dude. I agree. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's always great, man. I always love talking to you. You are, I've benefited just as much as you say you have from these talks. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I love it. So thanks.
BQ fam. Hey, this whole thing is trying to get people to take a deep pause. This is a real deep pause. Tall drink of water, if you will. I don't think that makes sense here. But yeah, stop scrolling, start reading. That would be what I would say. I'm going to try myself. I still like watching TV. Every time I talk to him, I'm like, man, I should read more books and stop watching TV. I kind of like watching TV, so I don't know what that does for me. But we're doing a life study. We'll be oriented very much in Jesus, but through some of his other texts. Saturday evenings. If you want access to it, we're going to build a little community around it. I think a bunch of people are monetizing communities, which I wanted to do, but I want to do it the right way. I don't want people subscribing to me because it's weird. But I also I don't know what that looks like. So if you want to be part of this exploration of life with what I would call some of the best thinkers in my community, you're invited. I don't care who you are. I just got to be a little careful because we got to protect the container. So all that to say, shit's getting real. I have better questions. Ivory Impact. I'm super excited about all this stuff. Emerging out of what's been most of my vocation in the fence world and into, trying to do some good in the world. So thanks for tuning in. If you found this interesting, you should share it. You should like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. One day I'm going to sell overpriced t-shirts because they think they're cool, and I'm obsessed with elephants, and we're going to take that money and we're going to deploy it into the world super responsibly. I've been really afraid to ask about that because I don't want to be gross and gimmicky, and I don't know what we're doing with merchandise, and I'm going to flip that industry on its head. You watch. You heard it here first. I haven't said that publicly yet, but no longer will anybody wear shirts that they don't know where they came from, they don't know where they were made, and they don't know what company they're supporting. With that, if you know anybody in the merchandise industry that would like to talk to me, that's where I'm going to start my exploration, right here, loud and proud. So thanks for tuning in, Pineapple. Thanks for keeping us rolling. Yeah, go and live better. Later.